see you again. Thanks for joining. So,
hey, my friend, good to see you.
A White House memo just issued this afternoon says that the pause does not affect Medicaid. It already had clarified that it didn't affect Social Security or Medicare. But the Medicaid website portal is experiencing an outage, and the White House press secretary this afternoon was not able to say whether Medicaid would be affected or not. So let's just walk through this because obviously there's confusion. Is this pause going to affect Medicaid?
It does not affect any service that the government is required to provide. It does not affect any entitlement. It does not affect any service to citizens. It does not affect any individual benefit, any public assistance program, or anything of that nature.
Okay. So that's
very glad for the chance to explain what's going on here. In fact, I could actually give you some backstory I think you'd find very useful, Jake. So we found after the president had issued a pause on funding to NGOs that were settling illegal immigrants, we found that bureaucrats at HHS were trying to funnel billions more dollars to those resettlement agencies and try to get around the executive order. It became clear that bureaucrats were still trying to funnel unapproved discretionary grants of funds to their pet projects. So OMB, led by Russ Vought, felt it was necessary to protect taxpayer resources to issue clearer guidance establishing for these discretionary grants of funding that are not directed by Congress, that they go through a political approval process at the agency.
So let's get into that because a number of government-funded organizations, so these are organizations like Meals on Wheels, right? Their job, their mission, it's a private organization. They get grants from the federal government. They feed seniors. Meals on Wheels is currently in the dark. They don't know, does this order affect us? Does this mean we're not going to have any more funding coming in? They feed like 2 million seniors. So I'm just wondering, first of all, why a pause? An investigation, sure, I get that. Auditing, sure. Why a pause? And what about?
Well, Jake, once you spend money, you can't get it back. So, in other words, if you don't put federal programs under review that are wasteful or harmful to taxpayers, and then people hit send, you wouldn't believe the payments we've had to pause over the last few days with bureaucrats trying to funnel money out of the door, funnel money to the World Health Organization, funnel money to resettlement organizations, funnel money to foreign countries. And so, of course, you have to put a pause on these discretionary grants of funding and have a political review process. In other words, there are people that are accountable to the taxpayer to review. It does not include, the review process does not include any public benefit program. So you mentioned Meals on Wheels. That is a public benefit program. OMB has been clear about this. Jake, we have to get control over this government. You know, I'll just stay on this point about NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Joe Biden gave just one NGO responsible for resettling illegal aliens $3 billion, with the B, $3 billion. President Trump, when he said drain the swamp, he meant it. And yes, so those kinds of spending programs are going to be put under review.
Okay, I don't think anybody's taking issue with if you find money that is being dispersed in an inappropriate way, halting it. I think what the confusion is this seemed to a lot of groups and a lot of states, Republicans, Democrats, independents, like a very sweeping order, and there is confusion. I just want to make sure I understand. So anybody out there that provides school lunches, anybody out there?
Yeah, there's zero impact on public benefit programs, full stop, as OMB has made clear. And I want to really drill down on this, Jake, because it's so important. There's 2 million employees in the federal government. Overwhelmingly, the career federal service in this country is far left wing. The American people.
I don't know that to be a fact.
Well, I'll give you a great example. We looked at USAID as an example.
That's
98% of the workforce either donated to Kamala Harris or another left-wing candidate, just as an example.
Okay, but let me just an entire workforce is having a.
Whoa! Did you just say that saying someone voted for Kamala Harris is demonizing them?
No.
So according
your suggestion is that there's a bias.
No, but you used the word demonizing. You just said that I'm demonizing somebody by saying they voted for Kamala Harris.
Let's get back on track.
But I am on track.
Okay.
Let me stay on track. What I'm saying to you is this: there are 2 million employees in the federal government.
Right.
They're overwhelmingly left of center. The American people, I got to finish the sentence.
Okay.
I got to finish the sentence. The American people voted for dramatic change implemented by Donald Trump. So it is essential for him to get control of government, to establish a whole of government process for Donald Trump's political appointees to review discretionary grants of spending for pet projects that are not directed by Congress. In other words, these are pots of money where Congress hasn't said how to spend it or where to spend it. This might be something like saying, I want to build a $500 million fountain in the courtyard of the Department of Commerce. This might be something like saying, I want to fund gender studies in Afghanistan. There has to be political control and review. I can't help it if left-wing media outlets published a fake news story that caused confusion. If you read the OMB guidance memo, it is, well, if you read the OMB guidance memo,
I don't know what
it's as clear as day.
We just talked to Congressman Don Bacon, a Republican, a Trump supporter. We just interviewed him. He said that there was a lot of confusion. He said that the executive order
created by the media, Jake. The OMB guidance memo, if you read it, it's as clear as day.
It's pretty broad
my point is,
and confusingly written. Parts of it are about DEI, parts of it are all disbursement. It is.
Yeah, DEI suspended. That is correct.
Right. No, I'm just saying, like, it's kind of all over the map, and there is confusion, and it's not just liberal media.
Jake, tell me.
Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski said.
You're not understanding what I'm saying.
But
I'm saying that
I want you to address this.
I will, but I'm saying that a false story was put out that people responded to. It's unfortunate that people put out a false story. That's all I'm saying, Jake.
Okay.
That's all
Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski said, quote, nobody really knows how long, unquote, this review of these federal funds is going to last. And she said it's, quote, been a big challenge, unquote, to get answers from the Trump administration. So here's an opportunity. How long is this review going to take? And when does the federal funding for these programs resume?
You get hurt in a car accident and they give you a check that wouldn't cover my shoe shine? That's
Well, the administration filed an appeal this morning with the Ninth Circuit. I would note the administration won an identical case in the Ninth Circuit just a few months ago with respect to the federalizing of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me? It seemed, Stephen, I apologize. It seems like we're having a technical issue.
It was rumored that the Nazis near the end of World War II were doing research on the minds and behaviors of humans, and that the secrets and answers to that research lied in the German scientists themselves. Countries such as China, the Soviet Union, and, through the mission codenamed Operation Paperclip, even the United States took former German scientists and engineers back to their own individual countries. The United States was terrified by this. The thought of communist countries researching and developing mind control methods was the worst thing imaginable. The idea of being able to brainwash your citizens, or anyone, into believing in the communist agenda, or any agenda for that matter, is an extreme power. Of course, the solution to this is to just beat the other side to the finish line. And that's exactly what the United States government attempted to do. Mainly, the CIA. The CIA was created in September of 1947, just a little over 2 years after the end of World War II. The goal? Gather intelligence, information from both domestic and foreign entities. In a 1951 CIA memo, it expressed the need to explore scientific methods for controlling the minds of individuals. The concerns of a Cold War world run by new Soviet mind control and brainwashing technology was an actual and genuine fear of the United States. Seriously, in an early 1950s CIA document, it states, hypnotism appears to have been used in some cases by the Soviets. It has the possibilities of lowering resistance against telling the truth, while also being able to induce specific action or behavior in a subject. It is possible for a skilled Russian operator to bring about an interrogation, yet leave the subject with no specific recollection of having been interrogated. The leverage you have for having this kind of power over other humans, whether they be spies, prisoners of war, or even normal citizens, is almost unrivaled. The thing is, this isn't fiction. This isn't some made-up conspiracy theory. There are confirmed facts. In the mid to late 1970s, over 20,000 CIA documents were released regarding the United States' most illegal undertaking. This is the story of how a single government agency planned and attempted to control and alter the minds of those who inhabited the country that they run. How the United States government attempted to develop psychological, biological, and radiological weapons to turn both foreign and domestic spies into sleeper agents. and how it could still be going on today. This is Project MKUltra.
For coming here from all over the world to honor and celebrate my Charlie. Just a few miles from here, 2 years ago at America Fest 2023, Charlie delivered a speech on stage for our TPUSA Faith event. Charlie loves speaking off the cuff. He was very good at that, without a script. So I personally didn't know what he was going to say. And what he chose to speak about that day was his submission to the will of God. He quoted one of his favorite Bible verses, Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8. Here I am, Lord. Send me. Even the doctor told me it was something so instant that even if Charlie had been shot in the operating room itself, nothing could have been done. There was no pain, there was no fear, no agony. One moment Charlie was doing what he loved, arguing and debating on campus, fighting for the gospel and truth in front of a big crowd. And then he blinked. He blinked and saw his Savior in paradise. So those of you who know, Charlie was very good about having a surprise for every AmFest. And we are so blessed to have you. We are so grateful. I mean,
thank you. I'm honored to be here. I am honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Love you guys. So we're just gonna dive right into this. You had
Assassin J.D. Vance, our vice president. And when I say that,
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Behavioral Arts. My name is Spidey, and I use my degree in sociology and psychology, my certifications in criminal interrogation and body language analysis, and my Point USA's annual political conference, America Fest. Grammy-nominated rapper Nicki Minaj appeared on stage in a conversation with Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow. Almost instantly, a key moment from that conversation went massively viral online after an unusual word choice by Nicki Minaj and the immediate reaction from both her and Erica. In this video, we're going to look at the full conversation and examine several verbal and nonverbal behaviors that raise important questions. What do their body language, facial expressions, and word choice actually reveal? Let's dive right in.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nicki Minaj.
Hi. Hello, how are you?
So, those of you who know, Charlie was very good about having a surprise for every AmFest. And we are so blessed to have you. We are so grateful. I mean,
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I am honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
love you guys. So we're just gonna dive right into this. You had some fun words for Governor Newsom. I have to read these tweets because they're amazing and they're so funny. Okay, first one, we'll do this one. Unless you want to read it in your own voice, I think it'd be really great. Okay.
Oh, Gabby Poo, it only gets worse from here for you, buddy. It's the end of the road for you, my love. Get on the nearest jet ski and let that beautiful hair blow in the wind. It'll make you happier than this race that you will not win. Enjoy life. Peace.
I love it. So I'm just gonna let you riff. Like, I want you to say whatever you want to say,
Well,
Mr. Newsom.
dear Newscomb, we don't have a problem cleaning up the scum if we have to. Please tread lightly.
Okay, so right in the beginning, in the first 7 seconds, something happened that got my attention as a performer who makes YouTube videos. And I just couldn't ignore it, so I looked into it a little bit more, and it started a massive train of thought. But I don't want to start with that. We're going to circle back to that after we talk a little bit about the body language that we're seeing here. So right off the bat, you'll notice a couple of things. With both ladies, we're seeing a lot of grooming gestures. And grooming gestures are anything that we do to fix our appearance. And this happens a lot in front of a crowd before we're about to film something or start a conversation. Nicki Minaj is going to continue to do this throughout the conversation, so it's very much part of her baseline. But here in the beginning, they're both doing it a lot, just grooming before the conversation, which is very typical. Another thing that we're seeing from Erica Kirk here is this big open mouth smile as she looks at the audience, as she looks at Nicki Minaj. It's this big open mouth smile that involves the entire face. There is a lot of research on the different types of smiles, and universally, a big open mouth smile indicates actual amusement or excitement. And here we see it in the body language, the way she's leaning, looking at the audience, looking back at Nicki Minaj with that big open mouth smile. Throughout this analysis, we're going to compare a lot of what we're seeing here to an interview that she did a couple of weeks ago on CBS that we covered on the channel. And that was a much more serious conversation with much heavier topics, and we could see that on the face. In that interview, we saw a lot more closed lip, thin horizontal smiles that didn't involve the whole face. These are usually a lot more consistent with social smiles, polite smiles, sometimes even a bit of an irritated smile. And there were a lot more smiles along those lines in that interview as opposed to this one, which is a very different demeanor, understandably so. Okay, so we're excited, the vibe is positive, they sit down, it's time to talk, and the first thing that she talks about is she says, "You had some fun words for Governor Newsom." And again, we see that open mouth smile, and she checks in with the crowd. This kind of look over to an audience typically is very consistent with a public speaker or performer who wants to gauge the audience and see what their feeling is about this topic. So we sit down, we bring up Governor Newsom, and we check and see, okay, is everyone on board to start with this, like to talk about Governor Newsom and some of the tweets that Nicki Minaj wrote. So she checks with the crowd, then she comes back and she has Nicki Minaj read these tweets that she wrote about the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. And then she says, you know, I want to let you riff, I want to let you just talk freely about Newsom. And that was interesting how she was like, you know, I just want you to say whatever you want. And she kind of throws in about Newsom.
I'm just going to let you riff. Like, I want you to say whatever you want to say, Mr. Newsom.
But leaving body language aside for a moment, there's something I noticed right in the beginning that kind of had this domino effect of thoughts that paints an entire frame around this entire conversation for me that I want to talk to you guys about. So I noticed right in the beginning, it was very awkward the way there was this obvious cut to where it says Nicki Minaj, we see the fireworks with the screen open, then all of a sudden she's sitting down with Erica Kirk. Now, as a performer who's made a living on stages for over 20 years, this felt very odd to me because this is a big entrance. You want to see her come in. You want to see them hug. You want to see how she's greeted because they've obviously put a lot of thought into that. But instead, there's this weird cut. So I went looking for that footage elsewhere, and I found it elsewhere. And as it turns out, what is happening is as Nicki's coming out and they're greeting each other and they're going to sit down, they're playing one of her most popular songs called Super Bass. So this is where the YouTuber in me kind of kicked in for a second and said, okay, the reason they cut it is probably because when they upload the HD version of this, they don't want copyright issues, they don't want copyright strikes, so they're just removing that part of the song and just cutting to the beginning of the conversation. That's probably a really good reason why some of the people who uploaded this cut that. But if you think about it, if you're going to take this footage of this event, Turning Point USA's entire event, and the footage doesn't belong to you, and you're going to put it on your channel as is, you're still likely going to run into copyright issues. So removing a bit of that song doesn't give you the right to use this entire footage. And if it's Turning Point USA who's uploading this footage, then they would have had those conversations and contracts that gives them the right to use that song for the entrance. So it wouldn't be a problem. This is why at award shows you constantly hear the music as the person's getting on stage. Furthermore, the moment where they greet each other is very, very important. There are ways to cut around that to where the music isn't present enough to cause a problem because it's such an important moment. So yes, the copyright thing explains some of it, but I still felt a little uneasy about the fact that the whole thing was just cut out. So this whole topic sent me down a rabbit hole, and I did some digging, and it turns out that Charlie Kirk has some public experience with Nicki Minaj. And it all starts in 2018 when he texted Candace Owens and he praised Nicki Minaj's segment in the song Monster. He misspelled her name, but he was referencing her part in that song. But the most recent connection between the two happened in 2024 when, on a campus debate, Charlie Kirk said this about Nicki Minaj.
Right now, black culture is being held captive by influences, songs,
Which
and role models.
influences?
I mean, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B.
Okay, Nicki Minaj is causing dads to leave the home.
Hold on a second. I don't think that's a good role model for 18-year-old black girls. I don't. I don't think that songs that are talking about, like, glorifying wet female genitalia is exactly, I don't know which one wrote that song. Which one was it?
I think it was Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But but by the way, the role models of the 1940s and 50s for Black America were completely different.
So it is a representation issue.
Hold on a second. No, not representation. It's who do you get your art from? It's what values are they putting forward?
Now, there was some debate when he said that because he was talking about Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, and he said that he doesn't believe that glorifying female genitalia instills the right values and constitutes a good role model. So a lot of people thought that when he said that, he was confusing Nicki Minaj for Cardi B, who does have a song specifically about that. And you guys can go look that up. However, let's take a second to look at the lyrics of Super Bass, the song that Nicki Minaj walked out to on this stage at America Fest. So the song is about a guy that she's attracted to, and here are some of the things that she says about this guy. He ill, he real, he might got a deal, he pop bottles and he got the right kind of build. That's nice, he exercises. He cold, he dope, he might sell coke. He always in the air, but he never fly coach. Well, that's good, he could afford the comfortable seats on the flights. He a mother effing trip, sailor on the ship. When he make it drip, kiss him on the lip. So maybe in that clip that we saw, he was talking about Cardi B's song that's about that. But we see in the lyrics of this song that it's about that exact same thing that he expressed he has an issue with and doesn't think are the right types of values or constitute a good role model. In addition to this guy maybe being a coke dealer. We don't know. We're looking into it. He might sell coke. And by the way, Nicki Minaj has a lot of songs like this with explicit content, suggestive lyrics, and even if he was talking about a different song specifically in that clip, he still named her as a role model who pushes values that aren't necessarily the best according to him. Now let's make something very clear. I am not giving my subjective opinion on Nicki Minaj here. We could sit here for hours and debate whether or not she's a good role model, whether or not the art should determine the value of the artist. You know, all her albums have the parental advisory warning on it for explicit content. So a lot of people out there argue and say, no, it's just like a movie with adult themes in it, or a horror movie, it's for a specific audience, while others argue and say, yeah, but what she's putting out there doesn't symbolize good values. And that's fine. We can all have that debate, and my opinion would just be worth one person's opinion. However, what's important here for me is that Charlie himself, the founder of Turning Point USA, explicitly said that he doesn't think she's a good role model and is not representing values that he aligns with. Those are his words, not mine. But objectively, taking that into consideration, I find it really odd that at the first AmFest after his passing, she's a guest. She's a guest that we're all excited about. And we're all pretending like a few months ago, he didn't specifically say that she's not a good role model. And not only is she a guest at this event, but she's walking out to her song Super Bass, which has these lyrics that are very much along the lines of the specific thing that he was saying doesn't represent good values. Now, as my viewers know, I like to often challenge my own conclusions just to make sure that I'm not coming from a place of bias. So I really thought about this and said, okay, maybe it's not about her music. Maybe it's because her faith aligns with what they preach, her political standing aligns, maybe they find that she's changed as a person. And I think that if Charlie had come out and said, look, I've been critical of her in the past, but we've had a chance to talk lately, and I've seen a lot of change in this woman, and she very much aligns in her faith, in her political belief, with what we believe, so I'm glad to introduce Nicki Minaj, that would be different. Furthermore, I'm sure that there are a lot of celebrities who align with Turning Point USA in terms of beliefs, who haven't had this controversial past that Charlie has specifically spoken up about. Look, if you're new to this channel and you're not too familiar with my work, first off, let me assure you I am not one of those creators who's constantly looking for reasons to attack Erica Kirk. In fact, I don't look for reasons to attack or defend anyone. I typically just point out behaviors and the logic of certain situations. I think a lot of my viewers would tell you that I've been extremely fair and neutral when it comes to Erica and Turning Point USA, just sticking to behaviors, that's it. But in this case, I'm having a very hard time justifying why, when he has said that, when it's an easy guess, anyone can guess that the things he preached don't align with these lyrics, why they would bring out this guest shortly after he passed. So I'm struggling. I'm having a hard time justifying this specific guest at this specific moment in time. And again, nothing against Nicki Minaj, but Charlie himself expressed that she's not a good role model.
Our students feel this way, but why do you think speaking your mind has become so controversial?
Because people no longer are using their minds, their brains. So right now, just imagine we're not allowed to have a different opinion anymore. We're not allowed to think out loud anymore. We're not it just, that's not okay. And we're not gonna have it. And I love this. You know, it's giving the younger people confidence that they will need later on in life. You guys will need it, and you will have it. So I'm rooting for you.
Amen. Amen.
And that clip, again, I don't have much on behavior, but in terms of matching up with other things that were said, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. And let me tell you why. First off, Nicki Minaj is saying that we're not allowed to think for ourselves anymore, and we're not allowed to have differing opinions anymore. And we see towards the end Erica agreeing with that. Now, notice it's not that same big agreement that we saw with the haters, where she comes to life and she leans in with the eyebrow flash and the smile. It's a more muted agreement, and I think that there's a reason for that. If we go back to the CBS interview, she was asked about all the different theories that are circulating out there. And it was very clear in the way that she spoke that there are some that she finds completely ridiculous, and that's fine. There are some that could be really out there. And again, I'm not debating which ones are valid, which ones are invalid. I'm looking at behavior. But behaviorally, she seemed to think that it's a very silly line of thinking. And when specifically asked what she has to say to those people who think along those lines, she said, stop. Stop it. We saw that clip. So let's look at this completely objectively. Whether we agree with the conspiracy theories or not is irrelevant. Whether they are valid or not is irrelevant. The fact that there are people out there who are thinking differently from her, who are trying to use their brain to think for themselves, and her answer to them is stop it, does not align with what's being said here. And I think that's why the agreement is a little muted, because on the one hand, she does believe that people should speak up. She's asking a question about it. But on the other hand, if she goes too far down that direction, she would have a hard time explaining why people who want to try to figure out what happened with Charlie shouldn't be able to disagree against the main narrative and speak up.
Yes. See, dear young men, you have amazing role models like our handsome, dashing president. And you have amazing role models like the assassin J.D. Vance, our vice president. And when I say that,
trust me, there's nothing new under the sun that I have not heard, so you're fine. Yes, we did. I love you. I love you. You have to laugh about it, truly. I have been called every single thing, and you know what? God is so good, you let it roll right off your back. And this is what's so beautiful about this moment, because if the internet wants to clip it, who cares? I love this woman. She's an amazing woman. She has a soul and a heart for the Lord. And words are words, but I know her heart, and it doesn't even matter. And you say what you want to say because I know your heart. And I will not judge that.
Sister. Thank you. For boys, be boys.
Amen.
Okay, buckle up. This is going to be a wild one. What just happened? And there's so many ways that this could have gone different. But anyways, let's go through it from the beginning. So they're talking about role models, and Nicki goes into this kind of playful place where she goes, we have and she kind of slows down a little, side eye to the audience. We see this little wiggle with her shoulder and with her head like this. Handsome, dashing president. So it's very theatrical, it's very playful. And then she goes on to talk about J.D. Vance. And she says, and we have great role models like the assassin. So we see the same thing. That side look with that little bit of a playful shoulder wiggle, J.D. Vance, our vice president. And when I say that, so she keeps talking. And let's be honest, if she had just kept talking and she didn't pause and we didn't see everything we're about to see snowball, a lot of us would have just looked at it and said, that's a weird choice of words. And some people would have latched on, but it wouldn't have gone as viral as it did. A lot of us would have looked at it and said, I guess she must be an assassin, like, he's a killer, he goes after the things he wants. It must mean something to her that, I haven't heard it used before in that sense. Instead, what happened is the reason this went as viral as it did. Because she instantly says, and when I say that, she pauses, and we instantly see a very obvious face scrunching. Everything comes inwards. Eyes scrunch, eyebrows, the nose, the mouth, like this, and she even goes, So this kind of inward scrunching doesn't really happen in that many situations. Universally, it happens with focus or concentration or confusion. So any type of deep thought causes a lot of scrunching. We also see scrunching in the mouth and nose in deep thought and confusion. Like you might see someone go, what? Like really confused, like, huh? Like this, or like this with the mouth. So a lot of scrunching, but this kind of everything coming inwards like this, also has elements of disgust to it. So it's hard to differentiate between the two, but this is an unpleasant or confusing thought for her. And we see it immediately on her face. She even pauses, she goes, and then what do we see next? We see one of the best examples of an eye block and a mouth block happening at the same time that we've ever seen on the channel. She actually closes her eyes and the hand comes up to her mouth like this. So let's talk about both of these things first with the eyes. So eye blocking is universal. We even see it in children who were born blind, which means it's not something that's learned or observed. It's innate to humans. And we close the eyes to either focus on something or away from something. So think of the eyes as the garage doors to the thought. We're either trying to keep something out or trying to hold on to something. Then we have the mouth block, which sometimes is subtle. Sometimes we see things like this, and sometimes it's exactly that. The hand shoots up to the mouth like this, which when we're kids, we see this when a kid swears or says something they're not supposed to say or reveals someone's secret, the hands come up like this. It's that we're trying to either take words back or hold words in from coming out. And historically, the best example of this that I've talked about on the channel ever was Amber Heard during her deposition when she revealed something about TMZ that she wasn't supposed to know. And both her hands came shooting up like this. And then she started fixing her head to make it seem like that's what they were doing up there. That's how involuntary it could be at times. And here we're seeing, I think, the second best example I've ever seen in the history of the channel. She said this word, she froze, we have this unpleasant or confusing thought. Then we go to the eye block and the mouth block, trying to take that word back and not face what she just said. Now, before we talk about what this likely means, let's look at Erika's behaviors. So she immediately runs to Nicki Minaj's rescue instantly. And that's nice, as the host, to have this kind of friendly vibe up there. She immediately takes her side and goes, trust me, there's nothing I haven't heard under the sun. so you're good. Believe me, you're good. You don't need to worry about it. I think Erica in that moment actually read Nicki Minaj quite well. She saw that discomfort, she saw that shutdown, she saw the mouth block, and immediately with a smile just goes, it's okay, don't worry about it. Then somebody in the audience yells, we know what you meant. And Erica immediately goes, yes, we do. And she looks at Nicki and she goes, I love you.
Yes, we did. I love you.
And this is more just encouragement and trying to signal that it's okay. Because here's the thing. First, I don't believe that Erica actually knows 100% what Nicki Minaj meant. Because if she did, because she's going to go on to say that, you know, people on the internet could clip this, so she knows that there's something there to clip. If she did understood what she meant, she would have said, guys, no, listen, here's what she meant. She would have clarified right away. So I don't think she knows entirely what Nicki Minaj meant. I think she's just bouncing off what that person in the crowd says. And then secondly, that I love you, I don't think anybody watching it felt that it was a true tender moment of expressing love for someone, like an actual love. It was more of an I love you, of like encouragement. You're doing great, I love you, don't worry about it. And then Erica goes into a very confusing monologue. So let's start from the top. She goes, you have to laugh about it, truly. I have been called every single thing, and you know what? God is so good, you let it roll right off your back. So first of all, she says, I've been called every single thing. But that's the type of thing you would tell someone if someone insulted them, right? If somebody called Nicki Minaj something disrespectful, she could go, you know what? I've been called every single thing. You have to let it roll right off your back. This further shows me that Erica is not entirely certain how to handle this, because she's saying, I've been called every single thing, but Nicki wasn't called something, right? She used a word. So it's like we're defending the wrong thing. Then she goes on with, this is what's so beautiful about this moment, because if the internet wants to clip it, who cares? I love this woman. She's an amazing woman. So we have an acknowledgement here that there's something the internet will clip. So there's an awareness. So it's like subconsciously her mind is going to defend her and say, I don't care what the internet says. I love this woman. And in this defense that could have not happened, she's acknowledging that there's something here to defend, right? People will say what they want. She's a great woman. She has a great soul. So she's going to that defensive. And then finally she ends with, it doesn't even matter, and you say what you want to say because, and we now see a one-sided shoulder shrug. She shrugs with her left shoulder like this. I know your heart. So let's talk about one-sided shoulder shrugs. You'll notice that with the right hand, she's holding the microphone. So some people might be tempted to say, now hold on, maybe because she's holding the microphone, she only shrugs with one shoulder. But I found that there's no correlation with holding an object and one-sided shoulder shrugs. Leans, yes. Sometimes you see somebody leaning on something like this and they only shrug with the other shoulder because it's weird and awkward to shrug with this one. But typically when we're holding something, this doesn't stop symmetrical shrugs. In fact, throughout this conversation, there are numerous times where she's holding the mic and she shrugs with both shoulders. In his best-selling book, former FBI special agent and world-renowned author Joe Navarro talks about one-sided shoulder shrugs and how they denote a lack of confidence, not a lack of knowledge.